DeGeneres have a hand in 4 deaths? Is she complicit, or just catastrophically unlucky? And is the internet right about everything it's been saying for the past 4 years? Kath Perkoff, Ellen's girlfriend, drove home alone after a fight, and her car split in 2 against a tree. Anne Heche, Ellen's most famous ex, crashed into a burning house at full speed and spent 9 days dying in a hospital. Leslie Jordan, Ellen's co-star, her loyal returnee when no one else would touch her, lost control of his car during a medical episode and hit a building in Hollywood. Twitch, Ellen's DJ, her on-screen partner for 8 years, the man she called family, left his house without his car one morning and never came home. 4 deaths, 4 different circumstances, decades apart. One common thread. Her name is Ellen DeGeneres, and this is the story the internet built around her, and the parts of it that are actually true. The phrase people keep using is the Ellen curse. It starts in 1980. Ellen is 20 years old, working as a waitress in New Orleans, living with her girlfriend, poet Kath Perkoff, known as Kat. They fight. Kat tries to get Ellen back at a concert that same night. Ellen pretends she can't hear her over the music. Kat drives home alone. Her Mercedes hits a tree at high speed, splitting down the middle on impact. Kat is 23. Ellen later said she was on her way back to reconcile when she drove past the wreckage. That story stayed buried for years, until Ellen started using it in her stand-up. That's how the press found out Kat existed at all. Fast forward to August 2022. Anne Heche, Ellen's most famous ex, the woman whose entire career collapsed the day she went public with their relationship, crashes her Mini Cooper into a house in West LA at full speed. She's trapped for 45 minutes while the car burns. Then comes the clip that goes viral. On a stretcher, covered in burns, Anne jolts.
Guys, I have just switched my broadband provider and it was 100% worth it. I moved to Rise Fiber and the difference was instant. Faster speeds, way more reliable, and I'm paying less every month. No buffering, no dropouts, even when the whole household's on.
It's upright. Imagine there was a tool that... Right. Medical experts call it a trauma reflex. The internet calls it something else entirely. She died 9 days later from inhalation injuries and a sternum fracture. Cocaine and were confirmed in her system, though the medical examiner notes they were inactive metabolites. She wasn't high when she crashed. Ellen's response, when a reporter caught her on the street, "We're not in touch, so I wouldn't know." Asked if she wanted to send well wishes, "Sure, I don't want anyone to be hurt." A journalist who covered it called the comments shockingly cold and said it's not hard to pretend you care when your ex is fighting for her life. And Anne isn't even where the pattern ends, because we haven't talked about Leslie Jordan yet. Leslie Jordan was a beloved comedy actor, dry, warm, the kind of performer people genuinely loved. He appeared on Ellen's self-titled sitcom in the 90s, then came back to guest host her talk show in 2021, right when her cancellation era was already in full swing. On October 24th, 2022, just weeks after Anne Heche's death, Leslie lost control of his car and crashed into a building in Hollywood. There were no signs of foul play. He was 67. 2 deaths, weeks apart, both connected to Ellen, both car crashes. Then the conversation pulled in a third name, and this one landed differently, because Twitch wasn't a former girlfriend or a guest star. He was the soul of the show itself. Stephen Twitch Boss joined The Ellen Show as a DJ in 2014. By the end, he'd been elevated to co-executive producer. 8 years on that set, and by most accounts, the only person on camera the audience actually trusted. In December 2022, his wife, Allison, ran into an LAPD station, frantic. Twitch had left home without his car. Something was wrong. She knew it immediately. Paramedics found him at a hotel shortly after. Sadly, he had taken his own life. He was 36 years old. 3 children. Ellen posted on Instagram, "Twitch was pure love and light. He was my family." The comments turned on her within minutes. One person wrote, "You ate Twitch." Now here's where this story gains traction. Not because of the deaths themselves, but because of what had already been documented about what was happening inside that show. In July 2020, BuzzFeed spoke to 36 former employees. What they described wasn't a difficult workplace. It was a culture of systematic fear. Producers accused of sexual misconduct, staff instructed not to make eye contact with Ellen, a senior producer who screamed at crew while Ellen sat in the room and laughed. Her response, according to a witness, every production needs their dog. 3 executive producers were eventually fired. Ellen gave 3 separate public apologies in under a year, each one slightly more hollow than the last. Viewership dropped 40%. The show was canceled after season 19. When Twitch died 2 years later, people didn't just grieve for him. They went looking for a reason. The story they already had about that show, the fear, the silence, the years of documented toxicity, meant the grief curdled almost immediately. Multiple outlets described Ellen's tribute as orchestrated. Her PR team placed a remembrance piece within days. The headline called it heartfelt, the comments called it damage control. 4 deaths, 1 name at the center, and a workplace scandal that never fully produced accountability. The internet did what the industry wouldn't. They found a pattern. Psychologists call it apophenia, the tendency to find meaningful connections between unrelated events, especially when grief and distrust are already in the room. 2 car crashes linked to the same woman across 4 decades. A co-star dead weeks after a former girlfriend. A DJ gone 2 years into a cancellation spiral. Taken separately, each story is a tragedy. Placed side by side, the human brain refuses to call it coincidence. What makes the Ellen curse stick isn't the deaths. It's the texture around them. The coldness after Anne's crash. The silence around Twitch. Nearly 20 years of reports describing a set that ran on fear, dismissal, and the threat of being erased without explanation. Ellen built 2 decades of television on the promise.
Got something to sell? Your store, your way. Easier than ever with SiteGround e-commerce. High converting templates to get you started. Simple payment and tax setup. Marketing tools built right in. Start free.
That she was, if you applied for legal aid, but the kindest person in the room. That promise made her $450 million, a Presidential Medal of Freedom, and 33 daytime Emmys. The people who worked for her, the ones who couldn't make eye contact, couldn't eat lunch without permission, couldn't grieve Twitch publicly without wondering who was watching. They paid for that image with something the awards don't measure. The Ellen curse isn't real, but the silence it grew out of is well documented, corroborated, and ignored for nearly 20 years. The curse was always the cover story. Kat, Anne, Leslie, Twitch. 4 people who got close to Ellen DeGeneres in very different ways across 4 different decades and didn't make it out the other side. The conspiracy says there's a pattern. The psychologists say the brain invents patterns when it can't find justice. The lawyers say nothing was ever proven. Ellen, as always, says nothing at all.